The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at dallasgenealogy.org.
Good morning. Our speaker is in person today, so we all have a treat. Kathleen Murray holds a certificate in genealogical studies from the University of Strathclyde and a PhD in information science from the University of North Texas. Before retiring in 2013, she conducted user studies for state and national digital library and web archiving projects. She began researching her family history in 2003 and joined the Dallas Genealogical Society in 2009. You may remember her as DGS Vice President in 2015 to 2016. Kathleen has presented research findings and educational programs at several local, regional, national, and international library and genealogy conferences. Welcome, Kathleen.
Wait.
I hope so. 5 of my 8 great-grandparents were Irish. And this is a story about one of them, Hugh Murray, and about uncovering his family, his Irish family, utilizing mostly the online records of Ireland. The records are primarily from the from the 19th and the early 20th century. So this is the time before the partition of Ireland. So the records really cover the whole of Ireland. The handout includes all the links that you're going to hear about in the presentation, as well as additional information. Okay, my father was Edward Murray, and he was 4 years old when his grandfather, Hugh Murray, died in St. Louis. And Dad often took his children to the Catholic cemetery in St. Louis, where Hugh and many of our other ancestors were buried. Hugh arrived in Missouri from Ireland near the start of the American Civil War. He was a wagon maker. And he and his wife, Mary Maloney, had 9 children in Potosi, Missouri, which is about 72 miles south of St. Louis. And that was about, by 1900, the whole family had relocated to St. Louis, where Hugh died in 1916. And that was about the extent of my knowledge of this man before I started my research. In 2001, I received a snippet from my aunt it was a biography of Hugh from the 1888 Washington County history. It said that he was born in the 18th of December in 1839 in County Down. His father was Michael Murray, a farmer. His mother was Catherine Murray, and they were both born in Ireland. He was the 7th of 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. In 1857, he immigrated to Washington County, Missouri. His occupation was a wagon maker and an undertaker, and he was married in 1866 to Mary Maloney. So in 2008, I spoke with one of my father's sisters. She was actually the only one who was still living in that generation. And she added that this family story she had heard, that he was a twin, and that the family resided near Belfast. And that he actually immigrated. His motivation was to be with his sister, to be near his sister. She apparently had come some years before, and she was lonely. So he arrived in New Orleans, Louisiana, traveled up the Mississippi to St. Louis, and then went down to Potosi. So my questions were these 2. Where in Ireland did the Murrays live, and who were Hugh's siblings? John Grenham, a well-known Irish professional genealogist, writer, and lecturer, advises that you should really try to look at all the U.S. records to identify the place of origin of your Irish ancestor. And what kind of records do you look at? Well, many of you will be familiar with these: naturalization, cemetery and burial records, immigration records, passenger lists, military, church, and vital records. So here we go. Passenger list, I didn't find him on a passenger list. US Census in 1860, he was there. He came in 57, and he was a wagon maker born in Ireland, living in Potosi. In 1863, he did register for the draft during the Civil War. He declared his intention to become a citizen. He was 23. He was a wagon maker. He was born in Ireland. There was no enlistment, muster, or pension records that I found. No naturalization records were found. The Catholic registers for St. Charles, Missouri, indicated that he registered. The marriage was in there to Mary Maloney in 1865. Their children's baptisms are in the registers for Potosi, and none of these records included any ancestral information. Land records, I had deeds for his residences, both in Potosi and St. Louis. The 1900 and 1910 census said that he immigrated in 1857 and was born in Ireland. He was naturalized and married in 1866. His death certificate in 1916 indicated he was born on the 14th of December, 1839 in Ireland, and that his parents were Michael and Catherine Murray, both born in Ireland. The obituaries in the newspapers only listed current information, meaning his children. And judicial and probate records, well, his 1865 marriage was registered in Potosi, but there was no Missouri will. So that kind of exhausted and gave me almost no information about where to go in these records. So we have what we have, but I also had his sister to take a look at. And his sister was Mary Flynn. She is married to Barney Flynn. And in 1860, he was living with them. Barney and Hugh were both wagon makers, and the three of them were all born in Ireland. The baptismal register for St. James Catholic Church in Potosi listed in 4 of their children's records that Bernard Flynn and Mary Murray were the parents of, and you can read the names, Hugh William, Catherine, and Mary Elizabeth. I wanted to find some record where her maiden surname was actually listed, so I would know she was a Murray, and she was. And her gravestone in Potosi lists her as Mary M. Murray, born the 27th of May, 1832 in County Down. So we still have County Down for the pair of them. And she's born in 32, so she's older sister. So I put her as an older sister, born in 1832 and married to Bernard Flynn. We had the census records, we had the baptismal registers, and the tombstone to support that. So in response to the first question, who were Hugh Murray's siblings? We have one. Before we go into the Irish records. So that's where I got started. And where in Ireland did the Murrays live? Well, we're going to accept what I heard and what I learned as a hypothesis to go forward with, that it was they lived near Belfast in County Down, Ireland. So a summary for Hugh, not to be too repetitive. He was born in December of 1839 in County Down and possibly a twin. The parents were Michael Murray and Catherine Murray. Michael was a farmer. They were both born in Ireland, and possibly they lived near Belfast. He's the 7th of 10 children, 5 boys, 5 girls. He immigrated in 1857 to Potosi to join his sister, Mary Flynn. And he was a wagon maker and an undertaker. So now we're going to go into the Irish records. And these are primarily online records. Actually, I think I only used free sources as well, with the exception of newspapers. And they will be from the 19th and the early 20th century. So this is pre-partition. And we're going to look at these types of records. We'll also look at the family. Church records, Catholic church records, valuation records, Griffith's valuation, the primary valuation, and then the revision books. Civil registers, census, newspapers, and probate records. To do research in Ireland, it's very, very helpful to understand the administrative areas. And we start with the 4 traditional provinces. In the north, we have Ulster going clockwise, Leinster, Munster, and Connacht. And these are comprised, 32 counties comprise these 4 provinces. The counties themselves are divided into what are called baronies. They're just areas of land that are well known. The counties, as well as the baronies, primarily follow the territory lines of the old Gaelic lords. And so they were based on that. So they were fairly well known, but this is a map that identified them specifically. And the baronies, of course, were further divided into civil parishes. And the civil parishes were divided into townlands. There's over 60,000 townlands in Ireland. This is County Donegal. And you can see the 7 baronies, each one has a different color. And then within it, the various civil parishes. And what you'll discover or be advised if you do much Irish research is that it's the parishes and the townlands that you have got to know in order to open up the records. The first records that we're going to look at are Griffith's valuation. A lot of people will call this a census substitute for Ireland. The purpose was to provide a uniform guide to the value of land and buildings throughout the whole of Ireland as a basis for taxation. Previously, there was no uniform way that taxes were administered, and there was a great deal of dissatisfaction with the county cess or the county tax. The valuation included both urban and rural areas. It valued land and buildings, and it identified the occupiers, who are the tenants, as well as the landlords. It utilized some standard maps. This was also kind of an innovative thing to do at the time. These are called ordnance survey maps, and they were created between 1829 and 1842 and outlined all of those townlands throughout the entire island. The Griffiths finished their valuation. They conducted it between, I think it started in 47. I know the last publication was in 1864, and it ended up being 300 volumes. So we're going to look at a site. I realize you can't read that. Don't worry about that. We'll highlight it, called Ask About Ireland. It's a free website of digitized cultural heritage resources from Irish public libraries, museums, and archives. It only has one mandatory search field, and that's the surname, Murray. It has 5 optional fields. And hey, we knew his first name was Michael, the father, and we knew that they were from County Down. So armed with this knowledge and not knowing the barony, the union, or the parish, we went forward. And the results were that there were 8 Michael Murrays in County Down, in 5 different parishes and 7 different townlands. Now, that's not many compared to 60,000 townlands. However, there's no way to distinguish which one of these was my ancestor. So knowing the county is clearly not sufficient to identify the property and the occupier. Chris Payton, another Irish professional genealogist and writer and teacher, states that townlands are by far the most important administrative areas that you will need to know for your ancestral research. So what townland and what civil parish in County Down were the Murrays from? In the absence of civil registration, which didn't start until 1864, and census records, which are virtually non-existent for Ireland in the 1800s, we turn to church records. Church records of baptisms, marriages, and deaths are the most important source for tracing your Irish ancestry. So states Roots Ireland. Roots Ireland is a database, essentially, coordinated by the Irish Family History Foundation. It has records that were contributed by 34 county genealogy societies throughout Ireland. The database primarily consists of church records, Roman Catholic, Church of Ireland, Presbyterian, and a handful of other denominations as well. The nice thing to know is that Catholic baptismal registers often include the residence of the parents, and residence is the townland. And the townland is the key to opening all the other records. So we spend time in Irish research looking at church records. So what about the religions, the religious dominations by percent of population in Ireland? These two sets of figures actually bracket, they're before and after rather, the Great Famine, which was 45 to 52. Catholic population, the denominations remain fairly stable in terms of percentage of the population. The Catholics were right at 80%, Church of Ireland just over 10%, and Presbyterians just under 10%. The Catholics primarily lived in the three southern provinces, so in Connacht in the west, and Munster in the south, and Leinster in the east. The Church of Ireland, primarily you will find the persons who in that denomination in the south of Ulster, as well as in the north and the northeast of Leinster, think the Dublin area. And Presbyterians were concentrated in counties Antrim and Down, which are in the northeastern part of the country in the province of Ulster. It's important to understand how the church records are organized. The church itself is actually organized the way the records are organized. There are dioceses and parishes within the diocese. Church of Ireland has a very similar structure. The parishes, the Catholic parishes, crossed civil parish boundaries, and very few registers exist before 1830. The National Library of Ireland holds over 3,500 registers from over 1,000 parishes in Ireland and Northern Ireland. In 2015, they digitized all of their registers and made them freely available up to 1880. And their database, you can go to, I think it's down the corner if you can read that, but registers.nli.ie. And again, all this is in your handout. And you will be able to browse, pick a diocese, pick a parish, and you can browse through an image of the actual register. The NLI terms of use. If you're going to be a provider of these images, you must make them freely available. Find My Past, Ancestry, and Roots Ireland all make the images freely available. Find My Past and Ancestry created an index into the records. So it's nice to get out of browse mode and to actually be able to go search. And when you find the record you want in either of those two repositories or service providers, it will link you exactly to the page in the register where the record is. Roots Ireland is a little different. You don't need an account for your initial search. However, if you want to view the records and do any add-on searching, you have to subscribe. And then they will also link from any record to the registers at NLI. What they will do, though, is they'll bring you to the first page of the register, and you will have to browse through it anyway. So just so everybody's a little bit different. When you go to the NLI site, the first map you'll see on the landing page is a county map of Ireland. And I put this green star there to give us an orientation of where Belfast is. And I pointed out where Antrim and Down are. And then if you click on one of those counties, you can see, or you can actually, you don't even click on those, you just switch the view from a county view to a Catholic diocese view. And then I just blew up. And it's hard probably to tell, but Antrim and Down are basically covered by two Catholic dioceses. Down and Counter is the biggest, and you can see how it surrounds Belfast and Dromore. If we click on that diocese, all of the parishes in the diocese become visible. And you can see that the three closest to Belfast are Holywood, Newtownards, and Carrickmannum and Saintfield. So you get your feet on the ground with a map orientation about what we're probably looking for, where will our parish be located. So how do you find a baptismal record? In 2 steps. The first one is, and again, this, if you haven't ever done it, it's no cost to do this. You get an ID at Family Search, you get to create an account, and then you navigate to the collection for Catholic parish records. So you're not searching the whole of Family Search, you're just going for what you're after here, and you search and view the results. I searched for what I knew coming into this research, which was that his name was Hugh Murray, that he was born in 1839, and the family lived in County Down. The first record that popped up was this, and this is him. It tells me that his father was Michael and his mother was Catherine, and that the event took place. What's the event? Well, it's the baptism. It took place in Carrickmannon in Saintfield. And conveniently, they have extracted this place into every one of their records. And the place, in fact, is the parish. It's the Catholic parish. So you can imagine now I've got a date and I've got a parish. I can go browse through those registers and find the record. But what happened that Family Search also does, if you do much searching there, is when they find similar records to the one that you're looking at, they have a hyperlink on it. So Michael and Catherine's names were hyperlinked to similar records, and actually to 3. And they both were hyperlinked to the same 3. And so what I discovered is that in that same parish, to those same parents, was born, baptized on the same day as Hugh, Daniel. And then there were 2 little brothers, Michael and Edward. So we've already got, a fair amount of information there. And of course, it turned out that he was a twin. Then you can go to the browsers, to the registers and browse through them. But now you know what date you're looking at. You're not looking at 76 pages of register. You're going to the year and the month. So there's that same map showing you where this parish is. And the baptisms here begin in 1837. Remember, there's very few registers before 1830. And the marriages begin in 1845. And the National Library does not give you any digitized images past 1880. So that just situates you in what you've got in this particular parish's records. And if we go to 1838, there on December 8th, we have the baptism of Daniel, of Michael Murray and Catherine Murray, and of Hugh, of Michael Murray and Catherine Murray. So that's actually pretty exciting when I saw that record. It was like, whoa, they were even baptized together. But it was, so who were Hugh Murray's siblings? Font just changed. Here's the boys, Daniel, Hugh, Michael, and Edward. And we still have the one girl, Mary. But we want to know from that record, what was the town land? Supposedly you can get that in an Irish baptismal record. Well, here's the same record with a highlighted BM for all 4 lines after the parents. So I know I've got a town land here, but trust me, there is no town land called BM. However, you can look on some other pages in this register, and there were a couple of records that actually spelled it all out. So it was Barney-McGarry. And so now we want to find this particular townland in a civil parish, because we need those 2 pieces of information in order to unlock the civil records. Townlands.ie is a great site for doing this. You can search the county. It will give you a list of the baronies, which we're not going to talk about, the DEDs, which are the electoral districts, which we're not using either. But notably, it will give you the civil parishes and the townlands. And it turns out, it's probably hard to read. I apologize for that. But Barney-McGarry is in 2 different, it's one townland, and it's in 2 different civil parishes. It's in Kilmore and in Colinchie. And it turns out that the Barney-McGarry is just one, townland, and then the civil parishes just cut through it. I looked Then went back to Griffith's valuation on Ask About Ireland. And we now have another piece of data we can put in there. The parish, I have Colinchie here. Well, what about Kilmore? Well, when I started with Kilmore, none there were no records, there were no results. So I know that Colinchie is my parish. And there were 6 names listed from Michael Murray. If you can see it, let's see, how do I get my pointer up here? All right. You'll notice that this one here says McGreevy, and this one here says McMahon. Michael Murray will be the landowner rather than the landlord, rather than the occupier of those 2. So that only leaves us with 4. That's a really good small number of Michael Murrays in County Down that we have to look at. And Ask About Ireland will helpfully give you a detailed view of that record, which is really an extraction from the original page. And it will give you a map view based on those ordnance survey maps, which were done of all the townlands in Ireland. So if you look at the detail pages, and we would only have to look at 4, you could look at all 6. I'll show you one. It will tell you exactly what the townland is, and we'll know if in this particular parish, we've got the right Michael Murray. So if we two-handed here, okay. What it does for the detail view is it gives you a pop-up window, and the pop-up window looks like this, and then you can exit out, go to the next one, look at it, and go find the one. Here's the parish of Colinchie and the townland of Barnamachry. This particular valuation was printed in 1863, and very importantly, the map reference is 3. That's going to be where the property is on the map. So you're going to be able to locate exactly where the farm was. The next view that we're going to look at is the page view. So here's the parish of Colinchie. Here's the townland of Barnamachry. And Barnamachry is, it straddles a couple of civil parishes. It also straddles a couple of maps. Map, I think it's 16 and 23. The first column, don't worry about the A's and B's right now. We're going to go down to map reference 3. That's ours. And there's the occupier, Michael Murray. The immediate lessor is the landlord, and that's the Marquis of Londonderry. The area of his holding is 17 acres, 25 perches, and the annual valuation is £15, 10 shillings. On this property, there's a house. There is what is called an office. Those are farm buildings, actually, you know, the barn, the stable, that sort of thing. And also then the land. So you get a nice view there. And the next view is of the map. And here is map reference 3. And you can actually, if you follow the red line, there's the buildings we were just commenting on. Here's the access road into the farm. And you just continue, you'll get the entire outside border of the property from map reference 3. And conveniently, if you slide the slider over, you go to the modern map. This is just an overlay. You can take it all the way and you'll just be seeing the modern map. But this lets you know map reference 3 is over here. This road is the dark road. It exists today. And this is Carrickmannon Road. If you basically put that slider all the way over and just saw the modern map and zoomed out, you would see that Belfast is just 11 miles away. So the family story, again, was a good lead for searching these records. Now, after the valuation was completed in 1864, sometimes the occupier would change. Sometimes the property would be sold. Sometimes the valuation would change up or down. And all of these changes are recorded in books called valuation revision books. When an occupier change is important for family history research, it could suggest the death of the previous occupier, or it could also give you the name of a family member who inherited this lease. Northern Ireland has their revision books online. They're freely available through 1933. Ancestry has that same collection. After 1933, you have to go to the Public Record Office in Northern Ireland, PRONI, to view them. The Republic of Ireland, for the 26 counters, they also have revision books. To the best of my knowledge, they're still not online, so you have to go to Dublin to see those. This is the search result, again, for Bornemagre Parish, Colinchi. And here are the books, there's 5. And if you look down that, yes, you can read that, 1866, 77, and so forth. The books tend to cover a 10-year period. And then if you select one, for example, the first one, this is what the records look like. Here again, you see map reference 3. The map reference is highly important because this is how you track from the primary, the initial valuation. If you want to see how that property changed hands for the next 60 years online, you can do it here. And so in what we see here is that, and the changes are written right on the paper. So they scratched out Michael and they wrote in William. So we have a candidate here for a family member who took over the occupier role. The valuation increased for some of the buildings from £2 to £3. How do you know when these things happened in that 10-year interval? Well, the last column will indicate the date of the change, and they use the same color, pen or pencil, that they wrote the change in. These can be, and this one is very hard to distinguish these colors. But I'll tell you, the best of my ability, William became the occupier in 1876. So I know that probably his father, Michael Murray, died somewhere between the publication in 63 of the valuation and 1876. So we can look at a death record for one. So just to recap, we've looked at the Catholic Church registers and 2 kinds of valuation records. The primary or Griffiths valuation and the valuation revision books. Now it's time to evaluate this William Murray and see if we can put him in the brother list. We're going to look at civil registrations and the Census of Ireland. Civil registrations have their own administrative area, of course, and they are organized by superintendent registrar districts. Say that fast 5 times. And the registrar's districts are comprised of district offices or registrar's office. So if you don't see superintendent, you know it's a subordinate district. Civil registration started in 1845 for non-Catholic marriages, and in 1864 for all births, marriages, and deaths. These records are subject to privacy restrictions. You can't see a birth in the registry for 100 years, a marriage for 75, or a death for 50. This is one little piece of information that I wish I'd known a long time ago, that the SRD boundaries are the same as the poor law unions, and the name is the same. We're not going to talk about poor law unions, but these are 2 concepts to remember, and they're the same. The boundaries are the same. They use different words, and the names are the same. And I'll show you examples of that. But just to recap, you have a registrar's district where I get married, I will go there, they will record it. The registrars in the district offices sent these to the superintendent's office. The superintendent then forwarded them to Dublin, and the general register office, often called GRO, is where they're kept. And they are largely online. For all of Ireland, and the left-hand side of your screen. The BMDs, birth, marriage, and death records, for those who aren't familiar with those, the registrations from 45/64 until partition in 1922 are all online, freely available at irishgenealogy.ie. It's a government site. And after the partition, the registrations for the Republic are available there as well for all 26 counties. Groney, or the General Register Office in Northern Ireland, has those same records for the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. It's a fee-based service. So point in the right direction, if you're looking for something in 1865 in the north of Ireland, you can go to Groney and pay, or you can go to irishgenealogy.ie and view it at no cost. So by and large, that pans out. Now, these SRDs, I apologize, I don't know why my font is changing. These SRDs and PLUs, that's what that should say. So you get, this is search interface into irishgenealogy.ie. It's a very important site for Irish research. And it has all the births, marriages, and death registrations. And it has a field called Civil Registration District. Well, I don't know who put civil in front of that, but they got rid of superintendent, at least on the interface. So you kind of have to know that what they're talking about here is, at least I had to know, it might be obvious to other people, the SRD and the PLU. And I will tell you in your handout, there are 3 online sites. And if you know anything about the record you're looking for, and we know quite a bit. We're going to County Down. We're going to the civil parish of Colinchie. We're going to the townland of Barnamachary. Well, you can go to one of these 3 sites, put in what you know, and they'll come back and tell you which SRD and PLU it's in. So you can spend a lot of time understanding PLUs, and they are important, but not for what we're doing today. So we're going to explore the civil registration records for this William to see if we want to tap him for a boy. I've highlighted here in the aqua color, the very first line of a registration here, this marriage, is the Superintendent Registrar's District of Lisburn. And the union is Lisburn. The event itself was a marriage, and it took place in the town of St. Field at the Catholic Church. So that's just showing you where they are on the records. But the information we're concerned about or really interested in, let me get rid of this little bugger, is over on the right-hand side. So here's William. He's a farmer. His residence is the townland of Barnamachary. His father was Michael Murray, a farmer. That's nice. In 1903, William died. This is his registration record for the death. The SRD is Downpatrick, and the union is Downpatrick. Well, what happened to that other one where he got married? Well, the event that happened was the death, and it happened in Barnamachary, not in St. Field town. And those 2 locations, while very close together, are in different PLUs, in different registrar's districts. So just so you know that it's where the event happened, that's where you're going to find the SRD. And you can search without it. And if you put in Michael Murray into that database with no registration district, you're going to get every Michael Murray and every event all over the island of Ireland. And there will be a lot. And we have, so you could use some maps and kind of narrow down what you're looking for and, filter them that way if you want it. But if you're doing a lot of this, it's kind of helpful to get used to how to find these registration districts. So then the census records, the important thing to know about Irish census records, they're essentially non-existent in the 1800s. There's a few exceptions, and those are in the handout. For 1901 and 1911, however, they're freely available and online at the National Archives. If we search for William Murray in the 1901 census, we know he died in 1903, so we'll do 1901 in County Down in the townland of Barnamachary. you'll end up at his household return. And we do have this. So here it is. There's William. He's the head of the family. He's Roman Catholic. He can read and write. The whole family can. And he's 70. Gives us an idea of when he was born. He's a farmer. And he was, as the head of the household, the person who signed it, indicating that, to the best of his knowledge, this is all accurate information. I want to call your attention to this number at the top. What it says is the number on Form B. This is Form A. That number means absolutely nothing in and of itself. It's not a house number. It doesn't mean anything. It's a reference number. It lets you go from one form to the other. So you go to Form B1, you will find house number 32, and it'll tell you all about that house. Whether it's made of stone, if it has a shingle or a thatched roof, how many windows it has in the front of the house. And you start to get a feel for this, where they lived. And Form B2 tells you about all of the buildings on the land. And so you have to indicate how many barns you have, how many coach houses you have, how many cow houses you have, how many piggeries you have. And there's even a boiling house. And I'm not sure about that. I guess for skinning. But anyway, that's. So these forms, they give you all that context, all that local color that you'll want to know to round out the story of your ancestor. And the only other thing I want to point out on this form, I hope you can kind of read that. Okay, so the first three names are William Murray, we just spoke about him, his wife Maggie, we've seen the marriage record, and then the eldest son is Michael Murray. If you know anything about Irish traditional naming patterns for boys, which are not universally followed by any means, but what we have here is a son, an eldest son named Michael Murray. His father is William, and William's father was on the primary evaluation, and it's Hugh's father, that's Michael Murray. So you'll Michael, William, Michael. Michael didn't have any kids, so there's. All right, so let's evaluate what we found. So we have the death registration, where the informant is, that's for Michael. I didn't show you that, but we've got a lot of information here. The informant is William Murray, and he resides in the townland of Warnamachry. The revision books we did look at, and in 1876, the occupier changed from Michael to William. And in 1878, the marriage registration, William's father is Michael Murray, a farmer. He lives in the townland of Warnamachry. In 1901, in the census, there's William again. He's a farmer. We get an idea of when he was born. And his eldest son is named Michael. That's more anecdotal than any kind of proof. In 1903, the death registration, we get another idea of when he was born, and the informant is his widow, and the event took place in Warnamachry. So I feel very comfortable concluding that William is the eldest son of Michael and Catherine Murray. So who were Hugh Murray's siblings? William, Daniel, Hugh, Michael, and Edward. And Mary's over there all by herself, but we're going to fill that in too. So we'll recap what we've looked at. We started with church registers. Then we went to valuation records for property, and then civil registers for BMDs, and then finally a census record. To find the females, we're going to turn mostly to newspapers, and we'll use the registration database again too, civil registration, and some probate records. There's 3 or 4 newspaper archives that I'm aware of. British Newspaper Archive is a partnership between the British Library and Find My Past to digitize the library's collection of over 2,400 newspapers. You can subscribe to that as a standalone archive if you want. Find My Past includes the archive in its everything annual subscription. There are 2 Dublin-based subscription services, Irish Newspaper Archive and Irish Times. And Ancestry has the Belfast newsletter. Probate. The important date in probate is 1858, when probate courts changed from ecclesiastical courts to civil courts. The ecclesiastical courts had a prerogative court of Armagh located in Dublin, and consistory or diocesan courts in the 18 dioceses of the Church of Ireland. The civil courts have a principal probate registry in Dublin and district registries around the country. The different counties use a certain registry, district registry, so that's easy to map out too. And what is online are these things called will calendars from 1858 onwards. A calendar is just an alphabetical index. That's all it is. And it'll take a name like Murray Edward, Murray Michael, Murray William, and it'll give you a little extract of whether if it was a letter of administration that was granted by the court, or if it was probate, who were the executors, how much money was involved, etc. And these will calendars are available on Prony from 1858 to 1965. And what they conveniently have are these things called copy wills. So you go into Belfast, for example, and you want to get your the will probated, and it's granted. After it's granted, a clerk or someone in the register office would copy them out. And they kept a handwritten, they're all in script. And they were kept at the local register's office, and Prony has got them for the 3 offices, probate offices in the north of Ireland, and they're all online. You can read the actual will. It's kind of cool. And the National Archives of Ireland have the calendars for wills and administrations also available for the whole of Ireland. And beyond 1923, you can get to the PDFs through their online calendar. The calendars of wills and administration, those are in the National Archives sites, and that's just the database. And then you can go name and you can search it. Well, the newspapers were quite helpful in finding these 4 females. And it was funeral notices that were most helpful. Hugh's twin Daniel died in 1906, and his son and daughter died the following year. The funeral notice was quite elaborate, and one of the little things they included were the chief mourners. I didn't know what a chief mourner was. Perhaps you do. You can guess, and it is actually rather intuitive. It's close family members or close friends. And here they conveniently tell us that for Daniel, it was his sons and his nephews. And those nephews had surnames: Darby, Neeson, Moffat, and Murray. Maggie's, and these next 2, I did the best I could with the images, but they're probably impossible to read. Her chief mourners were her brothers and her relatives, and Daniel's were his brothers, the same ones as Maggie, and their cousins. So I think her relatives, his cousins, same people, same names. The surnames are Darby, Neeson, Moffat, and Murray. Same way down here. So we've got 3 funeral notices listing as either a nephew or a cousin, and who these surnames. And of course, with females, if you don't know the surname, you're going to have a hard time finding the records. You can anyway. So Murray, we know, and those nephews and cousins that are listed belong to the William Murray who had the farm. But we're going to hypothesize that the 3 of the sisters, a female Murray married a Moffat, another married a Darby, and another married a Neeson. And those funeral notices give us 2 males in each one of those potential family groups. And we can look at the registration records to find the maiden surname and see if it really is a Murray. So start with Moffat. Here is the marriage registration in 1865 for Anna Murray and Robert Moffat. On the left-hand side, right-hand side, you'll see the family information. Anna Murray resided in Barnamachry and Colenchi. Her father was Michael Murray, and he was a farmer. The 2 nephews and cousins were William and Hugh. The civil registration records for Downpatrick indicate they were born in 72 and 76 in Barnamachry. The father was Robert Moffat, and the mother was Anna Moffat, formerly Murray. The funeral notice for Robert Moffat indicated his chief mourners, and these were his sons-in-law, and his brothers-in-law. William Murray of Barnamachry, he's the farmer, and Daniel Murray of Crossgar. He's actually a publican and a merchant. Well, if they're Robert's brothers-in-law, they're Anna's brother, and we know these two names. The probate listed exactly the same executors, William and Daniel, as well as his wife as the executrix. So I'm going to accept that Anna Murray, born in 1832 to 1835 and married to Robert Moffat, is an older sister of Hugh Murray. We have the marriage registration. We have the civil registrations where we get her maiden surname, the death notice for her husband, listing her two brothers, and the will doing the same thing. So we move on then to the Darbys. In 1868, there was a blurb in the newspaper stating in August 1868, in the Roman Catholic Church of Saintfield, James Darby married Esquire from Glasgow, Scotland, married a Miss Murray, who was the daughter of the late Michael Murray of Barnamacree in Saintfield. It's lovely information. And since we know the date and we know the parish where the event took place, we can go find it in the church register. The two sons, the two boys that were listed, if we look at the civil registration records in Scotland, at Scotland's People, you can find the father is James Darby. The mother is Rose Murray. Got the maiden surname there. And when he died in 1888, Rose put in a notice that this was her beloved husband, and he bequeathed everything to Rose. And the executors included a Daniel Murray from Crossgar, the merchant, and we know Daniel. James Murray from Ballygowan, a gentleman. I do not know who that is. Not my family. So I'm gonna postulate or at least conclude that Rose Murray, born about 1835 to 1836 and married to James Darby, is again an older sister of Hugh Murray. We have the marriage register and the newspaper. We have the mother listed as Rose Murray for two of her boys. We have the death notice and we have the will. The third name is Neeson. In 1876, there was another notice in the newspaper that on October 10th in the Catholic Church at Carrickmannon, Edward Neeson, a constable, he's in the Royal Irish Constabulary in Colinchie, married Catherine, the youngest daughter of the late Michael Murray of Barnamacree. So it's a great little piece there. And because it's not 1880 yet, we should be able to find a church record, which we do. And then there's also a civil marriage record. Now here, the place of the marriage will indicate, remember, what SRD and union they will be registered at. And Neeson's, they got married in Carrickmannon, and Carrickmannon is in the SRD in the Union of Newtownards. So when you know one, you won't necessarily know the other. It depends where the event happened. And here's the information of interest. Catherine Murray resided in the townland of Barnamacree. Her father was Michael Murray, a farmer. The two boys were registered in Monaghan, County Monaghan, and the father was Edward Neeson, and the mother was Catherine Neeson, formerly Murray. So we're going to accept that Catherine Murray, born about 1842 and married to Edward Neeson, is a younger sister of Hugh Murray. We have for the marriage, the Catholic register, the civil registration, and the newspaper. For the births of the two of her boys, her maiden surname is given as Murray. And in the will, his will, Edward bequeathed everything to Catherine. So who were Hugh Murray's siblings? Well, there they all are. We know the boys. The girls now, Mary, Anna, Rose, and Catherine. And just to sum up again, we looked at parish records for the Catholic religion, property records, civil registers, the census, newspapers, and probate records. And the only thing here that would cost you any money are the newspapers. Who were Hugh Murray's siblings? Well, here they are in order, 1 through 10. William, Mary Flynn, Anna Moffat, Rose Darby, Daniel, Hugh, Michael, Edward, and Catherine Neeson, and we have an unknown female. Where did they live? Well, this is actually a picture of their farm around 1910. It did have thatched roofs. And in 2019, I was able to go to the farm. That's me in the lower left, standing on a stone ladder that I'm sure my great-grandfather climbed many times in between the fields. And those are my three cousins that I met.
So let's start with some online questions. So Paul, do you have anybody with any questions there yet?
No, we didn't have anybody asking questions, but I was very interested to learn so much about the different, like what we parishes and counties and things of that nature in that area. It's overwhelming when I first saw that. That's crazy. But thank you. Great work.
Sure. You're welcome.
So, Nancy, go ahead.
I think I'm on. Okay, great. So I noticed on the Michael and Catherine, when you first found them and you found the baptismal record, I guess it was for Hugh, they do not list the mother's maiden name on that baptismal. Is that correct?
Actually, they do. I skipped over that. Let me see if I
I
can.
saw Catherine D-O and then B-M, and then we kind of
That's
went on
exactly
to
right. So DO stands for ditto.
Ditto, right.
And
And
it will be the same surname as previously listed. So Daniel Murray, and you get lazy. There's a lot of Murrays in this particular register. It's replete with Murray. And so
Right.
he didn't always write it out. So if her maiden surname was it'll be exactly like the ones before. He just put DO.
no, I understand. So I knew what the D-O meant.
Oh, I'm
but-
sorry.
No, that's okay. I just didn't know if they were dittoing her married name but what you're saying is the baptismal record should identify the mother's maiden name, and the fact that it was D.O. meant that she was a Murray at the time she married.
That's precisely
Okay,
correct.
very good.
And
then-
you can, that's an understand. I wondered the same thing
Right.
until I saw so many Murrays in this register.
Mhm.
And then you go find the records. And if you have a Murray on a civil registration record as the maiden surname, that's confirmation. Because not every parish priest did it the same way.
Right.
Some of them put the married surnames in there.
And that's where my question
Yeah,
came
and I
from.
get that. Yeah.
Okay, one other question then. I noticed that we didn't look at any baptismal records for the females. Is that because that particular inventory or our database was primarily accessible only by the child's name rather than going in and looking for parent names?
No, you could go to, you can do that in a couple of places. Just list the parent's name and then don't put in a forename for the child and get all of the records out. There's a way you can do that at Family Search. It was variously successful because of the DO, believe it or not. It wouldn't pick up the two DO records because it wasn't written out.
I see.
Okay, but you can also go to Find My Past, lets you do that.
Okay.
Ancestry lets you do that as well. So you can find them all in one search if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Anything else?
Yeah, there was one other question online. Question about how you found the picture of the farmhouse with the thatched roof.
When we went in 2019 to visit my cousins, the eldest cousin had a photograph. He had two. One of them had of the buildings at the farm, and one of them had 5 or 6 folks lined up. And he's getting older. He said, "I used to know who they all were." He didn't know who any of the people were. So, but he did have this picture of the farm.
I was just going to ask, is the PowerPoint going to be online, or is it just going to be as part of the video presentation?
Just part of the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take it that
Hold
in
on, wait for a
Irish-
microphone.
In Ireland, it's the eldest son that inherits everything, or the wife.
The way I've seen it work for the most part is, yes, primogeniture was the way of inheritance. So it went to the eldest son. Was that always followed? No. There was a time in Ireland where if you were Catholic, you could not inherit, you couldn't give your property when you died to your eldest son, unless the eldest son, I think initially he had to convert to a Church of Ireland, and then later on he had to swear an allegiance to the crown, and so there's a whole period of time in there. And if you didn't do that, your property got divided up among all the boys. And so you could see the farms would get smaller and smaller and smaller. But primogeniture was the way it was mostly handled. He was the seventh. Okay, anything else? Nope. All right, thanks all for your attention. I appreciate that. Bye.
This has been a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your fees have been supporting these and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining now. Go to dallasgenealogy.org and click on the membership tab.